Hi, good evening. Gary Dickson here, candidate for Supervisor, West Seneca, and this is our second Facebook Live event. So thank you very much to those of you who've been able to come to take some time out of your evening. I thought the first time went really well. In fact, my wife thought it was so good that she said, why don't you do that when you're supervisor? And of course, that's the great thing about having a wife. She says when you're supervisor, not if. And I thought, that's not a bad idea, because one of the things that we need to do is increase citizen participation, resident participation in our town government, so that they know what's going on. I don't know how many times I've heard, going door to door, that people just aren't aware of what the issues are. So, I mean, if I can do a Facebook Live, once a month or something like that, I would be more than happy to do that. That's a fantastic idea. So we're going to do something a little bit different this time. Last time was mostly just questions. This time I will do a couple questions, but I do have a guest, Brendon Najm, who's one of our candidates for the town council. But first, I wanted to talk just a couple minutes about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and that's ethics. The last couple weeks, there have been two big kind of ethics issues have come up in the town. The first was, if you read the West Seneca Sun or the West Seneca Bee, either online or on the paper, you saw that there was a couple of articles about the selection of the auditor, the company to do the audit for the town. When I heard about it earlier this year, I thought, the company that they selected already does work for the town. So how can you audit your own work? I mean, I'm not saying there's a conflict of interest, but there's certainly an appearance of a conflict of interest. So I raised that issue with a friend of mine who's a CPA, an accountant in town, and he talked to that auditing firm, and I guess they agreed with him that there was at least an appearance of a conflict of interest, because they stepped down and asked to be released from the obligation. And this whole thing about conflict of interest, I think, is really important, because we've had so little transparency in the town up to now that I think it behooves us to go, kind of above and beyond to try to make sure we're as transparent and avoiding any appearances of conflicts of interest. And if you want to read more about that issue, I mean, you can ask me, or or you can look on Facebook. The articles are there also, or on the West Seneca Bee or the Sun. So the other ethics issue was good news, that the town announced that the rewriting of the ethics code is finished, and this week on Monday, I believe they selected August 12th as a public hearing for the new ethics code. When I came to West Seneca, it had been a couple of years since the ethics board had met. And so I immediately talked to as many people in the town as possible. I mean, on the town board, I talked to the councilman and about why we had an ethics board, but it never met. And in fact, if you looked on the town website, there didn't even seem to be anybody assigned to it. So I made a bit of a stink about it. I talked to them, I heard their reasons. I got it before the town board, I talked about it on Facebook. And by the way, I wasn't alone. People had been advocating for an independent ethics board for years. In particular, Amy Carpenter and one of our other candidates for the council, Sue Kims. So kind of as a team, we convinced the town board to staff the ethics board again, and one of its first jobs was to rewrite the code, and that's what they've done. So if you can come on August 12th, I'll have a lot of comments about this new draft code. But I think it's good that it would be good if the town could show up. So a couple questions that I've gotten on Facebook and by Messenger. One was about Birchfield. I think it's a tragedy what's happened to the Birchfield building and the condition of it. I'm not prepared to make a statement as far as whether it should be rebuilt or not rebuilt. I mean, I think we should have it. The question is whether we can afford it. The town did talk about, they threw out a number of $500,000 to repair it. It's not at all clear about how they came at that number, what it involves, and who would do the work. So I think we need a lot more clarity on that to really figure out is it really that expensive, or are there ways we can do it cheaper. Another question was about zombie homes, but actually I think I've been talking enough, and Brendon has been sitting here very, very patiently, so he's going to scoot over and we're going to kind of get him into the frame.
Hi there.
Brendon Najm is a candidate for council, and I will let him talk about his background.
Yeah, sure. So I'm running for the 2-year council position in the town of West Seneca. I come from a background of growing up in the town, a lifelong resident. I went to West Seneca East Senior High School, graduated in 2010, and went on to Canisius College to study political science. From there, I started my career at the Erie County Controller's Office, where I worked for nearly 5 years under the taxpayer watchdog of Erie County. I learned a lot there and thought it was time to apply what I've learned from the Erie County Controller's Office to the town of West Seneca. I thought I had something to offer the town, and running for public office with Gary was probably one of the best decisions I could make to help apply those skills that I've picked up to the town that I care for so much. So it's been a really exciting ride so far, running for public office. Gary, Sue, and Jeff have been fantastic partners running for the council. I think we'll make a great team together. We come from a really diverse background. We have all kinds of experiences that we can draw upon. And I'm really excited to get to work and work together to help move this town forward. It's a really exciting proposition.
Yeah, and the great thing about our team is that we all complement each other in one way or the other. But one thing that we all share is that we have all shown by our actions that we care about improving town government in West Seneca, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. All the issues we hear about when we're going door to door, we're really excited for the opportunity just to show what we can do to help make this town a better place. We care deeply for this town. We want to make it a better place. We want to make sure that our children can stay here and be successful here. We want this town to grow, and we think that we're the best team to make that happen. So we're really excited to get started, and all the issues that you're talking about in this town, we're listening to you. We hear you, and we look forward to helping you take control back for your town. We know that's important to you, and we hear you.
So if you want to ask any additional questions in the comment section, if you want to ask it specifically to one of us or to both of us, feel free. We've got people looking at it, so we'll take your questions. But one of the questions that we had earlier before the show, before the streaming, was zombie homes, and I know it's been an issue that's been in the conscience of the town for a long time. And my take on it is that zombie homes should be one of the absolute priorities of the town government, particularly the legal department and the code assessor's office. Zombie homes are like a cancer in town. They ruin the property values of the neighbors. They take down the street, all sorts of things. So I think whatever we can do to make zombie homes a priority, both with our code enforcement office and with the legal department, we will do.
Yeah, zombie homes are a huge contributor to a negative quality of life. We realize that it's very important to us as your neighbors to reduce the amount of zombie homes and zombie properties in our community. We understand that it affects your property values. It affects how you view your neighborhood and your willingness to stay and work with us. So we understand how important it is to reduce the number of zombie properties. Luckily, we have a great partner in government. Our former Assemblyman Mickey Kearns is a great county clerk. He's been very proactive on the zombie homes issue. He does have a hotline on his website for reporting zombie properties. And we look forward to being your voice with Mickey Kearns. And whenever we hear about a zombie property in your neighborhood, we'd be happy to take that information up to the county and work together with our partners in government to make sure those are addressed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you had a question or two that people asked you before this.
Yeah, sure. So Rosie asked me, having worked in the county controller's office and been on the planning board, how has that shaped my candidacy for town council? And I think it's been a really fantastic stepping stone to come from not only public sector finance, but also seeing development in the town and how the town has to view all these projects that are happening. It really is a complex situation. We do love having development. We want to expand the tax base. We want to make sure that we can lower the tax burden on each individual person while maintaining services in our community. And those professional experiences and working on the planning board for the town has really helped give me a background in what it takes to encourage smart growth in the town and make sure that we're not developing for the sake of developing, or we're not rushing into something where 10 years from now they'll say, oh, what the heck was that town council thinking? We want to make sure we have the kind of growth that makes the next generation think, wow, what a forward-thinking set of town council leaders that West Seneca had. I hope moving forward we can have town leaders that think just as critically as they do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Did you have another one from previous?
I grew up in the Birchfield neighborhood. My Eagle Scout project was in the Birchfield community, so people all the time ask me, what do you think of the Birchfield project? And I completely agree with Gary. We don't know what we don't know about the project. So it's not something that we can rush in and make a decision on. It's something that we have to collect more information, more facts, and see, what level of use can we get out of the building, how frequently is it visited, how many members of the community does it serve. Obviously, it's nice to have a Birchfield Center. It's a critical part of arts and culture in our community. But how much can we afford as a community now that we've been strapped with so many spending projects? And we have to recognize that sometimes we can't afford all the things that we want to have. But what do we absolutely need? What is important? What can help raise tax revenue and make sure that West Seneca is a great community to live in? And we will continue to evaluate the Birchfield project and make sure that we do right by the community.
So all of us who are running with me, well, it was me, Sue Kims, Jeff Pekarik, Brendon Najm, as well as our highway candidate Brian Adams. We're all out now talking to the residents. So in the last couple of weeks, I've been over by the city line, along Birch, along Covington, along Tudor, talking to people about what their concerns are. And I know, for example, along Birch and in that neighborhood, people are very concerned about law enforcement, and they're concerned about the condition of the town. And I will say the people that I've asked about it are very happy with the police services that they've gotten. I think we have a great police department, and they're very responsive. I think one of the things that we need to look into is changing our code so that it's easier to deal with some of the problems that you have, whether it's people with backyard fire pits who are smoking out their neighbors, or whether it's trees that are falling down, or whether it's simply noise. I mean, some towns have a noise code that's more effective than our code. So I think we can look at all these things because we want the town to be as livable as possible for the residents, and we want people who are good neighbors.
Part of my job working for the county gave me the opportunity to travel from municipality to municipality from every corner of Erie County. I've been able to see, what kind of works in town government as far as these ordinances and codes are concerned, what doesn't work. It's been really eye-opening to travel the county and see what different governments are employing. And there are a lot of different strategies we can use to make sure that the quality of life here in West Seneca is just as high as anywhere else in Erie County, and for the rest of New York State for that matter. Mm-hmm. So we're really excited to examine what our other partners in government are doing and what other governments are doing to help improve the quality of life. And we want to make sure that we bring the best ideas right back here to West Seneca. And we can do that by participating in many organizations, including the Association of Erie County Governments, attending those meetings, and simply traveling around, picking up the phone, calling our other fellow town supervisors, our village mayors, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. We have this problem. How have you been able to address it? And I think taking that proactive approach and being present with our fellow government leaders will help us provide better government to you.
Oh, sounds like we got a question.
We have a question from Jakob Brennan. Would you care to comment on the town's board's negligence of the planning board's recommendation regarding the potential car wash property on Union Road? If elected, would you seek to overturn the board's decision if not too late in the process about the development?
Well, I do believe it is too late in this process. Obviously, I think they're going to start developing that property pretty quickly. And really, as a planning board member, we try to take, we look at the entire breadth of the situation. And with that car wash, we felt it didn't really fit in with the community we were looking to build in the Union Road corridor. We're looking for walkable businesses, traffic calming measures. That's what we're looking to strive for in the Union Road corridor. The town board seemed to disagree with the unanimous decision of the planning board and voted unanimously to overturn our decision or our recommendation. They think that the pros outweigh the cons as far as the car wash is concerned. And moving forward, I think the town board needs to look more closely at the planning board's decision making, perhaps communicate with the members more to find out what their thoughts were about a project before overturning a decision or coming up with a contrary decision. It's unfortunate. There's a lot of neighbors who are pro the car wash project, a lot against it. There's many factors, and it's a very complex issue, but it's important that we as town leaders cut through all that and make the best decision possible for the town. Again, it's a situation where 30 years from now, we don't want people looking back and saying, what were they thinking putting a car wash in the walkable village center of our community? Or maybe 30 years from now, they'll say, thank God we addressed the issue and built the car wash. We'll never know, but our job is to do the best we possibly can. And I'm not sure in this situation if that's exactly what happened or whether it's a short-term Band-Aid that might have long-term negative implications.
And does everybody know what we're talking about? It's the it's on Union Road, just past Norwood. As you're coming from the south, it's on the right. It's where the old greenhouse was. That's been derelict for quite a while, and the site has asbestos issues and all sorts of things. I mean, it's not a pretty site, and I certainly understand the desire for some of the neighbors to just say, we would just like something there. We would like something that works. We don't want this ugly eyesore there. It's definitely a difficult issue. There are neighbors there who are vehemently against it, and there are those who are passionately for it. So the town board and the planning board need to work together and come up with a position. You can certainly say that in 2016, the town published a community's kind of a standard plan of how they wanted the center of West Seneca to look. That they wanted things that made West Seneca more livable, walkable, maybe slow down traffic, make people want to linger in the area. It's hard to see how a car wash contributes to that. So, and the issue is then that once you've made this rather large exception to the plan, and the town spent 2 years to do this and about $65,000, so it was not cheap. A lot of people put a lot of effort into coming up with this plan, and you can see it on the town's website. So once you make a huge exception to it, how do you enforce it in the future? So that's one issue. I certainly see both sides, and I think the town board, they said it would add about $30,000 in tax revenue. It was a difficult position, but we do have a plan. We have a plan, and we either use it or we don't use it. And if we don't use it, then we're back to square one.
Right, and I think what's most important is that we make sure that we don't find ourselves in this situation again. We don't want neighbors to feel so desperate with their surroundings that they encourage the town to violate a master plan or to do something radical like this car wash might be. We want neighbors to feel comfortable with how their neighborhoods are shaping out, and certainly the way the greenhouses ended up and the way the properties that the car wash encompasses turned out. We don't want that to happen again. So
Right.
how can we make the code stronger? How can we ensure that properties never end up like this again? It's something we have to examine very carefully as a town board. We don't want our neighbors feeling desperate for certain projects that aren't really going to work out for the long term.
And we don't want businessmen who want to invest in the town to come in and think one thing and then have the rug pulled out from under them. Now, I don't know the background of the purchase of this property and what the new buyer understood, but it should have been crystal clear to him before he bought it what the parameters were for developing that site, so that we don't run into a situation where he's planning to do something and it doesn't work out in the end, or the town board has to say, no, you can't do that. Which is, and I mean, it's his money too. So we have to make sure that it's very clear on all sides.
Yeah, we have people who are willing to make a significant investment in our town, and we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to do that. But we also have to make sure that they understand that they need to fit in with our plans. We have a master plan. We have a Union Road corridor. We want it to look and feel a certain way. We want to create a village atmosphere. How can we make sure that developers understand what our plan is and how they can fit in and contribute and still make money and be good business partners with our town?
So I just want to say, I don't know what you guys can see. I don't know if my wife is photobombing our little session here. Hi, honey. You want to say hi?
Oh, hi.
Because they can see you.
No one's going to ask me any questions, are they?
No.
I'm sorry, did I get in the way?
No, you're perfectly fine.
No, just as long as you don't mind being on Facebook, it's okay.
I'm on Facebook.
Go ahead. Do we have another?
Yes, we have a comment from Mike. What are your plans for the flag rule for businesses?
The flag rule for businesses.
Yes.
I'm sure this has to do with recently a business had flags.
Oh,
in front of their
those
property
flags, yes.
and had to take them down to comply with sign codes and the way their property was zoned. It's unfortunate that we have situations that appear to be spot enforcement of the laws, where people who are friendly to the town can break the rules, and people who are not have the rules strictly enforced against them. And this really negatively impacts businesses. By and large, businesses, if you enforce the laws clearly and fairly and present them to them, they're willing to work with you and follow the rules, follow the laws, and be good partners in the community. Here we have a situation where, perhaps not everyone on all sides worked in good faith, and that can't happen. We can't be scaring away businesses. We can't have rules for certain businesses and not for others. It's very important that we treat everyone fairly and equitably with our rules in town. Being in town government is a privilege. It's something that carries a lot of responsibility, and it's important that nobody in town government abuses that authority that they do have.
Yeah, this is a big thing. This is an example of how the lack of transparency can really negatively impact the town's impression of our government. I mean, this town government, our town government, works for us. Whoever you elect in November is your public servant. They're spending your money, whether you're a direct taxpayer because you own your home, or if you're a renter, you're paying taxes indirectly through your landlord. Transparency is key. The public is entitled. It's not just that it's a nice thing that people know what's going on. No, this is your town government. It's your right to know what's going on. Unless something is a secret because of confidentiality, either legal or to protect someone's privacy, we have a right to know why things are done in our name. We fund it. We deserve to know. So this situation, it absolutely gave the impression of selective enforcement. Now, was that maybe it's a mistaken idea, but why doesn't the town government explain it to us? I was not at all happy with how that turned out. This poor guy has a business. We should be encouraging businesses in town. If we can help them to advertise their company, we need to. Whatever the town can do, within its legal authorities, should be doing for our businessmen. Every time a business goes out of business, it hurts us. Just a little bit maybe, but it hurts us. We need more development, not less.
Absolutely. Great question.
Yeah, thank you.
We have another question from Joseph. What is the plan for zombie houses in the town?
Well, we kind of talked about zombie houses a bit. The plan is more enforcement, and from our legal department as well as our code enforcement. We obviously don't have enough people in code enforcement, and we don't need more employees. So we need to take the resources of the code enforcement that we have and direct them at the issues that are really hurting the town. One of the big ones is the condition of the commercial streets. So there should be very strict code enforcement along our major thoroughfares like Union Road and Seneca Street and Clinton, etc. And zombie houses should be right up there with it. Other code enforcement issues may take a bit of a back seat. I understand that roughly one of our code enforcement people works on the sewers and on the lines, people's drains into the sewer system. That's important too. Other things may not be quite so important.
Right. It's absolutely one of these times where the town can better allocate resources to ensure that from a bigger picture standpoint, we address the concerns of the community. Some things may have to take a back seat. It's important that we prioritize what matters to you, the taxpayer, and ensure that your government reflects what you care about.
Right. So we've got 3 minutes. Do we have another? Good. Another question?
We have a question from Michelle. Are there any plans for the Lexington Green berm, possibly covering it with soil? The bags are badly decorated. Any information will help.
That's a difficult question. The flooding there is horrendous. About 2 months ago, there was a meeting in the community center in the community room that brought together people from various levels of government, from federal government, local, county, and they spent a lot of time going through and coming up with plans about how to remediate flooding. That they were going to, after the meeting, which I attended, they were going to go out and actually look at them, and then they were going to go back and come up with some ideas that that were workable for the town. In other words, how can we make the flooding better but afford it? It's something affordable that the town can do. So hopefully that we'll get some suggestions with that. But yeah, it's a big issue.
Yeah, we can't be afraid of this neighborhood. The Lexington Green folks, they went through a lot of difficult times, and it's important that we kind of stand with them and treat them with a little bit more empathy. These are people that lost a significant portion of their property. It's behind a berm now. How can we make sure that they can transition into life moving forward? There is a life after the flooding, and it's important that the town government be a partner to these folks who deserve lots of relief, and we need to make sure that we empathize with them, that we help make their situation as best as we can. And that goes beyond visits. It's about engaging them. What would they like to see? How permanent is the berm going to be? How can we make it look good for them? How can we make sure that their property taxes, their property valuations reflect the nature of what's been done in their backyards? These are all things that we'll take into consideration moving forward.
And we want you to know that we have your back in this. The town is on your side, and we will do everything we can. Nobody deserves to have sewage coming up into their basement. That's just unacceptable. So we've got 40 seconds. Do we have enough time for one more?
Sure.
Go ahead.
We have a question from Rick. Can we do something about the aesthetics of Union Road, specifically between Route 400 and the Southgate Plaza?
Yeah, so a lot of that is code enforcement, right? We have a town code, and maybe we need to spruce up our town code to make it so for the aesthetics. But the comprehensive plan that I was talking about was supposed to address that also.
Yes, we have a plan in place. It's been bought and paid for. It's important that we either follow this plan or look another direction. But decisions do have to be made to make sure that we do the proper things moving forward.
So we're 3 seconds over. Thank you very much for coming. We'll do this again in a few weeks. Thank you very much.